a May morning in 1602, two men rode out from Greenan Castle for Edinburgh. One of them was Sir Thomas Kennedy of Culzean. He never reached the road. In a stand of trees near Ayr, there were men standing with pistols, and they left him in the grass. 32 years before that morning, the same Sir Thomas had stood in a different castle by a different fire and watched a man being basted in oil over flames like a joint of meat. The man at the fire was begging. Sir Thomas was waiting for a signature. Everything between those two mornings is one of the bloodiest family stories in Scotland. It runs through an abbey and 3 castles on the coast. It starts with land, the way these things do. It ends with 2 men hanged in Edinburgh, and a mansion so lovely that nobody remembers any of it. We start at the abbey. With these people, you always start with the money. Crossraguel Abbey sits a couple of miles inland from the coast, near Maybole. In ruins, it still has weight to it. You can walk the cloister and feel that this was once a place that mattered. In the 16th century, it mattered for a reason that had little to do with prayer. An abbey like Crossraguel held land, and land held rent, and rent was money coming in every year, whether you worked for it or not. After the Reformation, those church estates fell open, and across Scotland the powerful moved in to take them. Whoever held the abbey held the income. That was the real prize, and everyone in Carrick knew it. The man who wanted Crossraguel was Gilbert Kennedy, the 4th Earl of Castles. They called him the King of Carrick, and he had earned that name. When he wanted the lands of Glenluce Abbey, he is said to have used a forged charter to take them. Then had the forger killed, so the forgery could never be traced. Then had the killer hanged on a charge of theft, so the killing could never be traced either. That is the kind of man we are dealing with. The abbey should have fallen to him cleanly. His own uncle had been the last true abbot of Crossraguel. When the uncle died, Gilbert expected to step into the income himself. Instead, the post went to another man. Allan Stewart was made the lay commendator of Crossraguel, which gave him the lands and the rents and the keys to all of it. Stewart had friends at court and the appointment held, so now the King of Carrick had a problem standing between himself and the money. The problem had a name, and it would not sign. Allan Stewart was a guest of the Laird of Bargany, another branch of the Kennedys when it happened. In the woods near Crossraguel, Gilbert came on him with 16 men. Among them rode Gilbert's own brother, Sir Thomas Kennedy of Culzean. Remember him? They did not announce a kidnapping. They talked Stewart into riding with them to Dunure. The castle stands out on the Ayrshire cliffs above the harbour, the old hard centre of Kennedy power on this coast, long before Culzean was ever dreamed of. The same walls had held Mary, Queen of Scots, as an honoured guest only 7 years earlier, in 1563. The moment Stewart arrived, his horse was taken from him. So were his weapons. 6 of the Earl's men were set to watch him. Whatever he had been told on the road, he understood now where he was. The demand was simple: sign the abbey lands over to Gilbert. Stewart refused. For 2 days they left him to think about it. He still refused. So they took him down into the dark, into the place the castle still calls the Black Vault, where a great fire was already burning in the hearth. They stripped him, they bound him, they covered his body in oil and set him over the fire. And they roasted him slowly so that he would feel all of it, and keep feeling it. They forced a napkin into his mouth so the household above would not have to hear. They burned his bare legs so badly that he was never able to walk properly again for the rest of his life. He signed. And here is a detail that tells you what kind of men these were. One signing was not enough for them. A few days later they brought him back to the fire and did it a second time, to be certain the papers would hold. The first burning was the 1st of September, the second was the 7th. This was a man cooked over his own dinner fire, so that another man could have a steadier claim on a field of rent. There was no rage in it. There was a clerk and a pen and a fire kept at the right heat. That was the Black Vault. Word got out, as it always does. The Laird of Bargany, whose guest Stewart had been, was also his brother-in-law, and he came for him. His men had reached Dunure and hid first in the chapel outside the walls. In the morning, when the gate opened, they rushed it and took the castle. Gilbert and his brother Sir Thomas came back to retake their own stronghold. They could not. The Bargany men held the walls and drove them off with stones thrown down from the battlements, and somewhere in that fighting, Gilbert himself was shot in the shoulder with a hackbutt. The castle built to project Kennedy power was being broken by the Kennedys. Stewart was carried out alive and taken to Ayr. At the market cross in the middle of town, his burns were shown to the people, and there, in front of everyone, he named Gilbert the Earl of Castles as the man who had done this to him. That should have been the moment power met justice. Gilbert and his brother Sir Thomas were brought to trial with the consent of the Privy Council. Sir Thomas was found guilty of forgery and ravishment, and Gilbert, the King of Carrick, simply refused to accept the court had any right to judge him at all. He was right to be confident. The regent wanted the country quiet more than he wanted one earl punished. In the spring, Dunure was handed back to Gilbert. He was made to post a bond of £2,000 to leave Stewart in peace, and to pay the broken man a pension for the rest of his shortened life. And the lands, Gilbert was allowed to buy Crossraguel for a fair price, and so in the end he got the very thing he had burned a man to take. He paid for it like a gentleman, and he kept it. A poorer man would have been hanged for far less. Gilbert Kennedy walked out of it with the Abbey, a pension agreement and a flesh wound. But the rescue at Dunure did not close the story, it opened it. Two branches of one family had now drawn swords against each other in front of the whole of Carrick, and that kind of thing does not heal. The fathers passed the hatred down to the sons like a title. The fire that Gilbert lit in the Black Vault would burn for another 30 years, and it would come back for the men who started it. A generation later, both of the old enemies were dead, and their heirs had inherited the quarrel like a debt. The Kennedy power now sat with John, old Gilbert's nephew, the 5th Earl of Castles. Facing him was the new Laird of Bargany, still a young man, the son of the Laird who had once carried Stewart out of Dunure alive. New men, same war. One December day in 1601, word reached the Earl that young Bargany was riding home through Maple. The Earl gathered 200 horsemen and lay in wait for him. Bargany's hired riders bolted at the sight of the odds, and the young Laird was left with a handful of his own. He stood and fought anyway. They ran a lance through his back and he died of the wound in Ayr a few days later, 25 years old. The men who saw him fall said he was the bravest ever bred in any land. That was one nobleman murdering another on the open road. The one man above them both was the king, and King James thanked the Earl of Castles for ridding him of a troublesome rival. 5 months passed. On the morning of the 12th of May, 1602, an older man rode out from Greenan Castle heading for Edinburgh. It was Sir Thomas Kennedy of Culzean. He was a steady hand behind the young Earl now, his tutor and his guide in all these killings. He was also, 32 years earlier, one of the men who had carried Allan Stewart to the fire at Dunure. In the trees near Ayr, Bargany's younger brother was waiting with a small company of men and a set of loaded pistols. They shot him down and killed him where he fell, and they robbed the body. Then they carried Sir Thomas back to Greenan. The man who stood over the fire in 1570 was carried home in a corpse in 1602, killed for a quarrel that the fire had started. He helped light it. In the end, it took him. The killing did not stop with him. The feud pulled in another family, tied to Bargany by marriage, and it kept finding new men to kill. A young man named Dalrymple, who knew too much about one of the murders, was killed on the shore at Girvan to keep him quiet. The trail of it ran for years, until at last 2 men, the elder Muir and his son, were taken to Edinburgh and executed for their part. Walter Scott thought the whole bloody business strong enough to build a play around it, and he did. And then the Kennedys did the most remarkable thing of all. They survived it. The family climbed out of the blood and burnings and the ambushes, and over the next 200 years they turned themselves into something polished. They built Culzean. It is one of the loveliest houses on this coast, set high on its cliff with the sea laid out below it, all elegance and light and good taste. Thousands of people visit every year. It is on postcards, it is on tea towels. Almost none of them know what the family did to get there. That is the trick of heritage. Give it enough time and a grand enough house, and a brutal story turns into a proud one. The fire at Dunure becomes a footnote. The lance in young Bargany's back becomes nothing at all. The man shot in the trees and carried home to Greenan becomes a name on a chart that nobody reads. And Crossraguel, the abbey that started all of it, the land a man was born for, becomes a quiet ruin where children climb the walls on a Sunday. So go and stand at Dunure. The view is worth the walk. The harbour is calm, the sea does its slow, patient work on the rocks, and from the air it is one of the finest ruins in the Ayrshire coast. Then think about what the kitchen was used for one September. Think about the napkin in the man's mouth. Think about the same family, 2 castles up the coast, sitting in their beautiful house with the blood all rinsed out of the story. The coast keeps them both. The postcard and the fire. It's up to you which one you choose to remember.